Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of DE&I Unstructured and Unscripted. I'm John Jacobs. I'm joined by my fellow co-founders, Man Wong and Sunil Diao. Happy Friday, fellas.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, mate.
So today we are going to be talking about the Great Resignation, which is pretty topical over the last 6 months, particularly. So it's been dubbed the Great Resignation, I should say, and what it refers to is what we're seeing is a trend in employees either quitting their jobs or looking to leave their jobs, surrounding the working from home, flexible working, going back to the office, physical office conversation. Lots of interesting surveys and statistics coming out at the moment around this. The US Labour Department had a record 4 million workers quit in April this year, citing pandemic burnout, a collective reassessment about priorities and what matters to them in terms of their health and their work-life balance. And more surprising for me is statistics coming out talking about Gen Z and the younger generation also feeling pretty strongly about working from home as one of the highest reasons for looking to quit in the next 12 months. 55%, Adobe did a survey and they cited 55% of Gen Zers would be looking to leave their role in the next 12 months if they didn't get any flexible working given to them. Personally, I think that's quite surprising. I, as a young whippersnapper in the office, used to love going in and being surrounded by people and having that social aspect and the ability to learn from people around me and watch and listen and all of that good stuff. So I guess times are changing a little bit. So, what do you guys think? Why don't people want to go back to work?
Yeah, I think after a year of these sort of circumstances, people are trying to reevaluate everything, and work and life is now blended into one, right? From home, and I think everyone on this call and everybody probably listening, your priorities have changed, and the way you can work and balance has changed, and things that you were routinely accepting, like rush hour traffic, is something that you don't want to compromise on anymore. I'm lucky enough to have a little shared office in the garden. My commute's now walking up the garden that my wife takes care of, and it's much nicer than being jammed onto a southeastern train that's running 10-15 minutes late. That's costing me £10 return every day. So there's that sort of aspect, really, just down to sort of commute. But then there's also these other elements, right? I think we live in a much more polarized world than we've ever done before. So if there's also these discussions around getting into the office, seeing people, which is great, being around people, which is great, but at the same time, when you are with these people, and that we do live in this polarized view, be it like, think about the topics, right? Politics. We've in this country, we've just had Brexit. Over in the US is this, there's a legacy of Trump. Vaccinations, that's a polarized point of view. Wearing masks, that's a polarized point of view. And when you're talking about it's not a post-pandemic world, but a pandemic recovering world, where people are taking their own personal preference precautions, it's not surprising that it's led to this sort of divide and how things work. And I think the idea, really, just to sort of round things off, is I saw the open letters from Apple. And they're asking their staff to come back into work 3 days a week, allowing sort of remote for the other two. And whilst I did feel there's a lot of empathy in the letter, the response was quite interesting in terms of how the employees sort of referenced their belief about, flexibility is a good sign of inclusion, right? And understanding that, and then the demands about what they counted for, one of which was like a recurring survey to sort of measure the pulse of how everybody feels about these things. We're three people on this call. I don't doubt one of us, for two of us, maybe all of us might want to go back into the office, but some days. But what we want is the freedom and the choice and the opportunity to do so when it matters to us, and also the freedom and the choice and the opportunity to stay at home and do all the good things that we need to do as a father and as a husband, right? So I think these are the things that modern workforces, modern managers. It is one of the biggest challenges that management has to face now, I think, going into next year.
Yeah, and to pass the baton on to Sunil here, I mean, do you think that businesses can spin this into a real positive? There's lots that they can look at here in terms of shifting their culture, saving on costs, attracting previously hard to find talent, niche talent, because they were restricted to coming into the office before, but now they can access remote talent. And what do you think about this as a positive for businesses?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I think businesses have got a challenge in from a culture and inclusion perspective, because you ask question why a lot of people want to come back into the office, right? And it could be that existing employees, etc., didn't feel comfortable before, pre-pandemic, etc., going into the office because of various discrimination or the culture of that business. So now there's an opportunity now to kind of work from home and not be exposed to that in some sort of element. So it's an interesting, because it poses an opportunity for businesses to attract talent that they may have thought they might have before because of where they were located, etc. They had to be in a city, higher costs, etc. But what it does mean now is open themselves up to, people will be looking into the business more now to go, okay, well, I don't have to be in the office as much. What's it like there to work? What's the management style like? What's this business? What's the brand like? And I think this is where the businesses now have to come out and be a lot more transparent and promote how they're going to be a lot more inclusive, how they're going to be more considerate. This is not just a phase, this is actually an ongoing thing, and how they're going to build the teams with inclusion in mind, and have that culture virtually, or if you're coming into the office. So it opens up an opportunity for talent and reducing costs in a way, but it also poses a lot of more sort of questions about what's it like to really work there in that business in this sort of scenario.
So in terms of trying to get some key learns or some practical things that people listening could take on board if you're looking at your organization's culture, I mean, what do you think organizations should be doing to either retain during this period their staff, or attract new staff, in terms of how they should be shifting their company culture to give their employees the ability to have this blended work from home and in the office approach? What ideas have you got around that?
I think we've got 18 months now of key learns of understanding the relationship with the employment relationship, I suppose, between you as an individual, as a worker, and the company. And with all those findings, it's really good time to sort of reassess and reevaluate what that relationship should look like, and then using a key word here, which I think is empathy or compassion, and really sort of understanding, okay, these are the relationships that we need to. These are the things, these are the elements that the relationship has now pointed out during these last 18 months. I think when people are trying to make this decision on month one of the pandemic, it's very difficult because, data, 6 months is still pretty loose. 12 months, people leave. You've got a bit more understanding. 18 months is a good window of understanding what people want, how they want to operate, the success of that. How do you actually monitor these people? How do you actually engage with them? And now you need to apply compassion into this as we move into a different phase of the recovery of this pandemic. That's the key thing. If you work in specialist conditions where you need to be in a laboratory, for instance, then that's slightly different. But in the main, most workers that we're talking about, particularly some of these large organizations like Apple and whatnot, they're software developers, or their sales individuals. There's nothing that they should not be able to. There's nothing that should command them to be in that space. If they want to be in that space physically, then that's fine. But we need to apply some compassion on it. I think the key thing about key learns, as you talked about there, Jay, it's the same thing. It's not rocket science. It's about engaging these employees. Better understand what their concerns are, what their aims are to be in their careers, what they want to have as part of support. How do you better promote this morale and their well-being? It's not just about investing in more continual mental health apps, which have their place, don't get me wrong, but often not. What we find is, oh, how do you support people in the mental health side? We do this with this app, but we're asking everybody to come back in 4 days a week now. They're not the same.
I think, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Companies now need to be a lot more genuine. So it's not like, oh yeah, we've got work from home policy, but then you get the microaggressions that you expect you to be in the office. So if that's going to be policy, which I know I've experienced that personally, I've been in environments like that. If that's going to be as part of policy, then you set up and support that, and you support that workforce, maybe adequately with, it could be things like how you remunerate people now, right? Helping them with the energy bills, helping them with setting up the right IT equipment, things like that. So making them feel comfortable and set up at home, and offer them the flexibility to come in, if there's certain specific things to come in, but it has to be part of policy of the business now, and it has to be shown through their behaviors and attitude, from management style to everything. So, and that's where it comes into play for me.
Great, thank you guys. Yeah, it sounds like in summary then organizations need to be really looking at their policies, looking at how they engage with their staff during this period, focusing on the happiness of their employees and what they can be doing there, and doing a lot of listening, I guess, because as we've seen, the world has still turned during this difficult period that we've all lived through, and businesses are still productive. They're still thriving relative to the pandemic. So this can work on an ongoing basis to have this flexibility, and it feels a little bit like it is the future of work. So organizations do need to get on board with catching up and adapting to this new way of working.
Just one note on that, Jay. You talk about the labor department statistics. I mean, the latest tally I saw on an article back in June was just over 9 million job openings, right? And then you for me, the companies and organizations that do employ that authentic approach, that want to utilize compassion and engage employee sentiment in the right way, has a tremendous opportunity of engaging the best talent now, because there's so much choice out there. This great resignation opportunity is there if you can mobilize in the right way to sort of entice people to come in and work for you, and then you can retain these people by employing the right kind of setup, I suppose, and policies within your business. It's going to be a fascinating time, because I think people have understood that. We how many people that we deal with on a daily basis that aren't in the UK at the moment, right? If you think about that for a second. And I think organizations need to get away from that brick and mortar mentality, still have that as the option, but this is the choice that we've got now, and the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think the physical space is still going to be super important. I mean, I speak from my own experience here. Living down in the southwest of England and having previously commuted to London every week. The mental fatigue I had, I didn't quite realise until last April, when I didn't have to travel every week, and it was just like a massive relief for a period of time. But now, 18 months down the line, I'm desperate to get back into some semblance of an office environment. Working on your kitchen table is great, and a few times a week is not an issue. But I really crave an ability to go work in an office environment, and that can be a regional thing. And I think we'll see a rise of regional hubs where outside of the big cities, more kind of town type setups where you'll get these kind of co-working spaces pop up for people that just want to pop in and set up a laptop and feel like they're in a semi social space with other working from home people. So I think we'll see a rise in that.
I agree, yeah.
All right, look, chaps, thank you very much. We could go on and on this, because lots of experience over the last 18 months, but we'll see how this one goes. We'll probably revisit this at some point, I'm sure. But for now, thank you very much, and enjoy your weekends.
You too, mate.
Thanks. And I just want to say a quick shout out to the UK Paralympic athletes out there, doing an amazing job. To all the athletes, doing us proud.
Nice one. Thanks.
Take care. Cheers.